Hello, welcome back to KXN Live. Thanks for joining us here on our Kristen's Classroom Day with meteorologist Kristen Currie. Kristen, thanks so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
Of course, pretty good. A much quieter day today, which is nice after that very windy and dusty day yesterday.
Yeah, it was nice to wake up this morning and not have all my backyard items
In
all
pieces.
over the yard.
Yeah, I totally feel that. I got home yesterday, my pillows were all over the grass. The fan was tipped over. I thought, okay, and I even knew it was coming, and I didn't prepare.
Well, today we're going to talk a little bit about a different subject, and that is tornadoes, which actually happen quite frequently here, right?
In Texas, absolutely. When we get into the spring weather season, severe weather season, tornadoes, unfortunately, pretty common sometimes. But this stemmed from some questions that I frequently get at school visits. These are some of those common things that I'll have a student ask me about or tell me about, and I say, wait, actually, and I thought, what a teachable moment to, not only inform maybe those who are misguided by some of these tornado things, but also something that parents can chew on and talk to their kids about when we do start to talk about tornado risks.
Yeah, and those students that you visit probably have the best questions.
They do. Sometimes they're a little wild. Sometimes they're a little wild, but I figured tornadoes, truths and tales. What is true about tornadoes? What is not true about tornadoes? That's going to be the topic today.
Well, let's jump right into it.
Let's do it.
What is truth and what is tales?
What is truth and what is tales? Tornadoes have eyes. I got this one yesterday. So a little boy asked me, does a tornado have an eye? And I think a lot of this kind of stems from the movie Twisters, if you've seen it, when Helen Hunt looks up into the middle of that tornado and can see the blue sky. Well, unfortunately, that is a myth. Hurricanes, absolutely. Hurricanes have eyes. But when it comes to a tornado, first and foremost, any sort of tornado research equipment, things like that, most of the time it gets chewed up by that tornado. We lose a lot of research equipment by the debris and by the wind of tornadoes. So there's not as much research with tornadoes as maybe some other weather phenomena. But also, when you think about a tornado, more often than not, they have these little subvortices, these little tiny spins around the main funnel, if you will, and eventually when it connects to the ground, that tornado. And some of those subvortices are expected to be inside the tornado. But I'll tell you, when it comes to a tornado passing through, most of the equipment's getting torn up. Most survivors who've lived through a tornado, there is so much wind, there is so much debris. You're not looking up into a tornado and finding that moment of peace like there is in the movies. So tornadoes do not have eyes. That is only hurricanes. Number two, and I heard this from my dad, tornadoes don't happen in the mountains. That is a myth. There have been tornadoes observed in the Rockies, in Colorado, Wyoming, in the Sierra Nevadas, out in California, in the Appalachians, out across the East. Tornadoes can happen in the mountains. Now, we tend to see more supercell thunderstorms that produce tornadoes in the plains when we have a little bit of warm air coming down or coming up really from the Gulf and some of that cooler air coming down from the north. All of that converges in the Central Plains, which is where we find Tornado Alley. But you can 100% find tornadoes in higher elevations. And this kind of ties in with the next one. Tornadoes don't cross rivers. They sure can. I'll tell you what, most of the time tornadoes don't care what's on the ground, right? They'll chew right through it. Tornadoes, and this is from NOAA. NOAA has said every river east of the Mississippi has seen a tornado cross it. Now, if it's a big enough river, big enough lake, and even the ocean, we would see water spouts, right? But tornadoes, they don't have this mind of their own where they're thinking, it's a mountain, I'm not going to do it. It's a valley, I don't want to do it. Or no, tornadoes are going to go where the storm goes. So if you see a thunderstorm cross over a mountain, cross over a river, that's where that tornado is going to go.
Wow. So there are lots of truths to the tornadoes, but there's also some misconceptions.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are usually the three big ones. I hear people saying, they don't happen in mountains, they don't cross rivers, and they have eyes. Now, I wanted to take this one step further. There's three more. Mobile homes. Tornadoes are attracted to mobile homes
How would they know what a mobile home is?
It's interesting because I think a lot of people see mobile homes destroyed, when it comes to Oklahoma and Texas, sometimes into the lower Mississippi Valley. They see these mobile homes destroyed, and maybe they're a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek, which is unfortunate, because that is somebody's property, that is somebody's home.
Yep.
But tornadoes are not quote unquote attracted to anything. Now, do we see more damage with mobile homes than brick and mortar homes with cement homes and cement slabs and such? Yes, we do see more damage with mobile homes. They're not as sturdy, which is why when you hear us talking about tornadoes here in Central Texas, we advise you to leave mobile homes. So no, mobile homes do not have any sort of attraction to tornadoes and vice versa. Seeking shelter under overpasses. This is another one I think that comes from the Twisters movie. If you've seen the new Twisters, they highlight this. Do not hide underneath an overpass. That is a myth that keeps you safe. First and foremost, and this is something I do talk to the kids about when I go into the classrooms. With tornadoes, I think people are afraid of, the big cloud condensation funnel that they see. More people get hurt or worse from tornadoes by the debris. It's the debris that tornado is flinging around. So whether or not that tornado goes right past you, it's if you're getting close enough to where you're getting hit by debris, then you're not safe. In the case of an overpass, if you're underneath that overpass and this thing is still flinging debris, that's not going to save you, right? Sometimes people say it acts more as a wind tunnel, but it's the debris that we're worried about. In addition to those 100+ mile per hour winds that a tornado is made up of, when it comes to you being safe in a tornado. Tornado rooms, for example, we tell you to get away from the windows because that debris has a very high chance of coming through that window. Something else to think about, putting a helmet on your head, right? Yep. If for whatever reason tornado gets close to your house, takes out a window, takes out the roof, we're worried about the debris coming down. So overpasses are not where we need to be when there's a tornado. What I recommend, and every situation is going to be different, but more often than not, I would rather you drive to shelter than hide underneath an overpass. And then one more thing, tornadoes can converge. Yes and no. We've seen the twin tornadoes, right? The sister tornadoes, and those can happen when you see some of those tornadoes that tend to be weaker. But if we're talking about the very strong tornadoes, the big mile-wide wedges, the EF4s, the EF5s, more often than not, those are isolated storms, a one-off storm out in front of a main line or all by itself that produces those big tornadoes, because thunderstorms do not like to compete with each other. They don't want to share the sky. They don't want to share the energy. So more often than not, when you have one lone thunderstorm or one lone supercell, those are the ones we're really watching because they don't have to compete with any surrounding storms. They have all the energy they need to start working out that mesoscale, that inner circulation to drop down that tornado. So can you see twin, littler tornadoes come together, or even a multi-vortex tornado when you have got one condensation funnel and smaller tornadoes on the outside? Yes. But be careful of those isolated loner supercells, because those tend to be the storms that are stronger and can put down some stronger tornadoes.
Now, my question to you is, how do these tornadoes even start? Like, where do they come from? What type of conditions do we need to have them? And were our winds yesterday a possibility for a tornado?
Good question. And this is how I tell it to some of the students that I go and talk to. I say, tornadoes are kind of like cupcakes. You need the perfect ingredient. You need a little bit of warm air, not hot. You need a little bit of cool air, some cold air. You want that instability, so warm air clashing with cool air. You need some moisture. You want some energy in the sky. And more importantly, you want that thunderstorm to spin. You want a supercell, that mesoscale convection, that spin inside that thunderstorm to really be strong and healthy. In the case of yesterday, we didn't have a lot of spin in the atmosphere. How do we get spin with thunderstorms? Well, if we have winds coming out of the south, coming off the Gulf here in Central Texas, let's say we get a disturbance, a trough coming in at the upper level. So those winds are coming in from the south down here at the ground, and up top, they're coming from this direction. You're going to get naturally a little bit of spin. Yeah. So when we say, with diverging wind to left, we're looking for some lift, some instability. When we're looking for I'm blanking on the word for winds spinning at different levels. It's been a long morning. Anyways, you get the point where it's the winds coming at different directions. Shear. Thank you. Come on, brain. Wind shear. That is what you need for tornadoes. We didn't have much shear yesterday. We didn't have a whole lot of the spinning of those storms. So we weren't concerned about tornadoes, nor did we have a whole lot of lift. We didn't have a lot of instability, but we had just enough to put down some winds, and those winds were largely because of a cold front, a big, massive cooler air coming in from the west.
Wow. So I know I've been specifically yesterday, I was driving around and we have some construction zones off the side of the highway, really dirty, like full of dirt.
Yeah.
And I saw like mini tornadoes in there. What are those?
Little dust devils.
Dust
Devils. Yeah. So technically, tornado starts in the sky and then meets from the circulation to the ground. So you almost get a little bit of a middle meet there.
Okay.
With dust devils, those typically don't have a cloud connection. Those typically start here at the ground, and it's a little bit of a instability and a little bit of shear down here at the surface. Those dust devils will start at the ground, but you won't see any sort of base. It won't connect to the cloud. Same thing with land spouts. A lot of the times you won't see, that big gorgeous funnel. And that could also be on our list too. You don't have to have a wall cloud to see a tornado. A lot of the times, especially here in Central Texas, when we get those lines of storms, those squall lines, it's just a matter of those winds pushing out, and you can get these little eddies, almost like if you were to take your hand in the bathtub and swoosh it over the water. You can sometimes get those little eddies. Same thing happens in the air. As you can get the little swirls that would be just enough to, you notice them like a dust devil, but the true, concerning damage, this has a real threat to life and property, typically comes with those tornadoes that start with the circulation within that thunderstorm and then meet with the circulation at the ground.
And since you've been here in Austin, how many tornadoes have you been able to report on?
Oh, girl. I would say probably close to about 10 to 12. I've been in Austin for about almost 6 years now. 6 years. The biggest tornado event was the 2022 outbreak. That was the Round Rock tornado, the EF2 Round Rock that went right over I-35 in the middle of the evening commute. March 22nd, I believe. March 22nd, 23rd. 6 tornadoes we had here in Central Texas that day. The strongest being EF2. I believe we had 2 EF2s and a few EF1s, but that was definitely one for the career. Unfortunately, we did see quite a bit of damage there. No injuries, no fatalities, no deaths. So that was the biggest victory for me, because that kind of stuff sticks with me for a long time, sticks with any forecaster when somebody doesn't survive a weather event. But the fact that we came out of that the way we did, I was very grateful. After 6 tornadoes, that strength that nobody did anything worse than that.
And around that time, would it have been safe to go under an overpass if
No.
it was passing through I-35?
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things. I'm sure if it's on our website, you can probably YouTube it. I just so happened to catch that tornado going right over I-35, and you see people just driving right through it. They didn't have any idea.
Wow.
No idea. Because a lot of the times these are rain wraps too. You wouldn't even know there's a tornado because it just looks like rain, right? So people are driving thinking, oh, this is a heavy rainstorm, and all of a sudden their car is starting to spin. My best advice to you, if we're even talking about tornadoes possible in the afternoon, be very vigilant, have that Kick-Sand weather app, but keep going until you find a sturdy structure. I would rather you inside getting to a place of safety than trying to wing it in a ditch or underneath a tree, none of that kind of stuff.
Or under the overpass.
Or under the overpass.
That is not true.
Not something that I would ever encourage you to do.
Yes. Well, thanks so much for joining us, Kristen. I do want to highlight your article that you wrote today and published today. It's titled Kristen's Classroom Tornado Truths and Tales. And we also have a list and explanations on each truth and each tale that you added here. So that's awesome to teach your kids, teach your friends, teach your family members about all these fun facts.
Busting some myths about tornadoes.
Well, thanks for joining us again, Kristen. We're excited to see what topic you have for us next week.
Yeah, we'll see you next week.
Thank you.